Okay, where the fuck is Dr. Jacobs? Let's review Xray, or Hospital Massacre. Xray, or Hospital Massacre, stars Barbi Benton and is directed by Boaz Davidson. What's up, guys? This is a review that I've done before, actually. So this is pretty much Xray revisited. But it's a Canon film, and the reason I'm redoing this review is because A, I really like this movie. B, it's a Valentine's Day movie, even though I'm a couple days late. By the time I get this out, maybe a week late. I don't care. I still like this movie. And C, my original review was literally like 4 minutes long or something like that. And a big part, like the first minute is me showing off the slasher movie book. So that's not gonna cut it. I'm going back into my old catalog and I'm finding reviews that I feel like are worthy of another review. This is definitely one of those. Just because also it's not a movie that people talk about that much. When you think about Valentine's Day slashers, you often think about My Bloody Valentine, My Bloody Valentine, the remake. Is there any other Valentine's Day slashers? But it's refreshing when you can come up with another good Valentine's Day slasher. This, I think, is a really good one. And it's also a hospital slasher. You know, think Halloween 2. As a matter of fact, this came out the same year as Halloween 2, 1981. Again, one of the greatest freaking years in horror. Did this really come out in 1981? Hold on. Yeah, definitely 1981. As a matter of fact, I still have the double feature. It's a Shout Factory double feature. It has Xray and also Schizoid. But anyway, first off, let's give you a quick plot synopsis. I'm going to call it Xray, okay? I'm not going to keep repeating Xray or Hospital Massacre. We'll talk about the name in a second. But anyway, Xray, it's the story of this woman, Susan. It takes place in one day. She's going to the hospital. It's on Valentine's Day. And she's just really just getting a routine checkup. As the story goes along, there is this doctor that's kind of stalking her. Right when she gets up to the hospital, she looks up in the window and she sees him just like staring at her. He's got his mask on and everything, and he's just very strange. And so once she gets into the hospital, she's kind of getting pulled left and right from these different doctors and stating that we need to do a serious checkup here because we think there might be a problem. And they don't really tell her what the problem is. So the whole time she's like, I'm just supposed to be here for a checkup for this job that I'm getting, and you guys just keep stringing me along. So in the meantime, there's all these murders that are happening by this killer that's dressed up in like a doctor's getup, and it's a whodunit. And so as you're watching this movie, you're like, is this an actual doctor that's doing this? Like, has this guy been sitting around there the whole time just killing, random people? Who knows? I guess we'll find out in the end. Now, at the beginning of the movie, let's go back. It shows Susan as a child. As a matter of fact, those two kids that are in that opening scene are also in Bloody Birthday, which is a review that I just did a couple months ago, actually. So that was kind of a nice surprise. Even though I'd seen this movie way before that, I didn't remember that those two kids were the ones that were in Bloody Birthday. And the one child that played young Susan, she just has like this evil look to her. And I hate to say that about a kid, but she does look evil, okay? I'm sticking by that, all right? She looks like an evil kid, or she looked like an evil kid. She's probably older than me now. Or actually, she might be around the same age. Okay, guys, one thing that really makes this movie stand out is that it is a Canon film. Canon Films, if you know, they're just known for really cheesy, almost like sleazeball types of movies. Even the behind the scenes of Canon Films, they would pretty much sell a movie based on a poster, a striking poster, and not even have a script written. You know, they would lie to distributors to get a movie made. And they started out doing low-budget slasher flicks. And they did this one, and they did Schizoid. The name, even though I don't know 100% for sure, but this is like one of the only cases where I've seen a movie be 50-50 in terms of the name. I've heard 50% of people call this Hospital Massacre, 50% call this Xray. And it makes me wonder if maybe there were just two posters going around when they were trying to get a movie deal on this. And they couldn't decide, so they just said, hey, we'll make a poster named Hospital Massacre, and we'll make a poster named Xray. I think that maybe that's what happened. And they didn't really give a shit about the name back then anyway, especially Canon Films. So we're left in limbo with these two names for all of eternity, and it's the only movie I can think of that the names are 50-50. Sure, there are tons of horror movies out there that go by multiple names, but usually one name rises, to the cream, and the other name is kind of like, oh, it was called this for a short period of time. But no, not this movie. You can call it Hospital Massacre, you can call it Xray. Doesn't even matter. But by doing that, it kind of takes something away from the movie, and maybe that's part of the reason why people don't talk about the movie to this day, because I think it's a very effective slasher that gives you all those great things that we want in, 80s slashers movies. You have the TNA with Barbi Benton. You have the great kills along the way, and there's plenty of them. There's plenty of blood thrown at the screen. The pacing goes by really fast, actually. I mean, this is a really fast-paced type of movie. I'd say the pacing's even much better than Halloween 2. Halloween 2, production-wise, is a much better film. But this one, it flies by much better. It just flows much better. And the killer, I think, almost has a little bit more charisma than Myers did in Halloween 2, He is Terminator Myers. And you really don't get much out of him except for just that slow, menacing walk. He's scary for sure. Myers in Halloween 2 is much scarier than the killer in this movie. The killer in this movie is kind of funny, actually. But it's a good funny, I almost look at this as like a horror comedy, It knows what it is. It's very self-aware. Now, one of the staples, too, of Canon Films is the bad acting. And there's tons of bad acting in this. Having said that, lead character Barbi Benton surprised me, actually, because she was a Playboy playmate. She had a relationship with Hugh Hefner. It's possible that she did more film and TV work, but I haven't seen her in nothing outside of this movie. But having said that, I think she carries this movie pretty well. She's in 99% of the movie. And you know what? For an actor that has that little experience, she does a damn good job, especially in the last act. Now, there's some nice, funny little Valentine's Day winks and nods in this movie, too. Even winks and nods to, like, other properties. There's one scene where she's in the elevator, and then the elevator door opens, and there's 3 gas mask killers just staring right at her.
You shouldn't be up here, lady. We're fumigating this floor.
That was a nice wink to My Bloody Valentine, which came out the same year, which is very strange. But also, if you really pay attention to the doctors' names, there's this doctor named Dr. Carpenter. There's also a doctor named Dr. Saxon, which is obviously a nod to John Saxon. But, fun stuff that us horror fans would definitely grab onto. And let's face it, this is a movie that people outside of the horror community are not going to see this movie. Okay? Like, if you're not a horror fan, you're never going to see Hospital Massacre. You're never even going to hear about Hospital Massacre. Us horror fans, when we try to recommend horror movies to our non-horror family or friends, the last word that's going to come out of our mouths are Xray or Hospital Massacre. It's just not going to happen. But it's a nice little buried treasure nugget for us horror fans, because it's good. It's fun. Now, going forward, I'm going to talk about the killer. I'm going to talk some spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie, watch it anyway, because it doesn't even matter. This is just a really cheesy slasher movie that if you know the killer, you're still going to watch the movie over and over. I've seen it a few times. It's a non-issue, really. Knowing who the killer is in this movie, it's a non-issue. It doesn't even matter, okay? But anyway, I had to give you a warning. But there is this doctor that seems a bit smitten with Susan throughout the movie. And I kind of like pinned him immediately. Like, I guarantee you that's the killer. It's sort of an obvious slasher. So of course, by the end of the movie, his name's Harold. He says it's Harold, not Harry. That's one of the lines from the movie at the end. But
Harry, it's not Harry. It's Harold. Remember, it's Harold.
For me, it begged the question, like, was this the guy that was actually the killer throughout the movie? As far as like the actor playing the killer, because it didn't really look like him, and sometimes they do that. Like even with, say, Myers in Halloween 1, when he was finally unmasked, it wasn't Tony Moran that played Myers throughout the movie. And I think this might be the same type deal. I could be wrong. But the last act is really good, actually. You got this nail-biting chase. Susan ends up on the roof. And, she's a good final girl. She actually beats him with a pipe and everything, stabs him in the freaking abdomen. It's really bloody. And again, it's a similar ending to Halloween 2 because she sets him on fire and then he jumps off the roof. But, he's on fire, just like Myers is at the end of Halloween 2. Halloween 2, much more theatrical, cinematic, however you want to call it. This one is kind of silly, but it still works in a fun, tongue-in-cheek type of way. Now, there's definitely some creepy vibes in this movie too, especially concerning our main character, Susan. Again, Barbi Benton, former Playboy Playmate. Of course, they're going to take advantage of that. This is a Canon Films, right? There's the scene where they're doing the checkup, and of course, we'll get the obligatory topless scene. But the scene, even though we're seeing Barbi Benton, it still feels really creepy. And I think just that situation, of being in a doctor's office with a complete stranger, and you are vulnerable. And I think they really captured that sense of vulnerability in the scene. The camera is just slowly going around, there's like no cuts. And so you feel almost awkward, like you're a peeping Tom. That's how I felt when I was watching this scene, And we always have, gratuitous scenes in 80s slashers especially. But this one, I think they played it very well with making the viewer feel uncomfortable. So big props to Boaz Davidson for the way he filmed that scene with a Playboy Playmate. Last big thing that I want to talk about this movie is the score. It's kind of a mishmash of things because it does feel like Friday the 13th. Like this would be the Friday the 13th hospital slasher. That's what it feels like if you were talking about the music. But then there's also these like chanting sounds in the background. It's better for me to just play it for you than to try to explain it. But it's just loud and bombastic, and it just really adds to the wackiness of the movie. And speaking of wacky, there's another wacky scene I thought was when she's running and she runs into this room. And you got these three guys that look like mummies. They're pretty much bandaged head to toe with their legs all strapped up and everything. I don't know what made them like flail their bodies about when she comes in the room, but it comes off as really silly and funny. I don't know if that's a con. To me, it's a pro because I was gut laughing during the scene. But there's also some really cool shots in this movie, like the scene where the doctor's like holding the sheet up and he's coming down the hallway. The scene looks like it cost $1.50, but they figure out a way with a little bit of creative lighting in the background to make a scene look really cool, because it looks like a cool scene. One of the funny anecdotes, and I don't know if this was intentional, was like throughout the movie they kept saying, "Where's Dr. Jacobs? Where's Dr. Jacobs?" And Dr. Jacobs was like the first victim throughout the movie. But I just got a big chuckle out of that. Like they just keep asking for Dr. Jacobs. Dr. Jacobs was Susan's doctor, so I guess it makes sense. Like she's like, "Where the hell's my doctor?" She ends up with this creepy guy, Dr. Saxon. Then you got this drunk that's just like roaming the hospital, Harold. I don't know what his purpose was. That's what this movie is. It's like they had a bunch of different cooks in the kitchen and they were like, "I'll just throw this silly idea in here and I'll throw this silly idea in here." And this character, Harold, really has nothing to do with the plot at all. He's not really a red herring because we know Harold's not the killer. I mean, can you imagine if the killer was just like this drunk bum guy? No, there's no way. So I don't know what Harold's purpose was. He's not really the harbinger of doom because he wasn't warning of anything. He's just a drunk. But anyway, I definitely would give this movie a purchase worthy. Purchase worthy meaning it's just really fun, cheesy 80s slasher. Canon Films, that's all you need to know. It's a fun movie. Anytime I review a Canon film, I'm gonna have a blast with it. They're just fun movies to discuss because there is a lot of eccentricities when it comes to Canon Films. A lot of oddities. And this movie's just filled with them. But that's a good thing because they're memorable. You can constantly think about all these different things. Like when I was sitting down to review this movie, I had like 10 different things in my head. All this crazy stuff like Harold and the flailing patients. And Susan finding her boyfriend's head in a Valentine's Day box. Great stuff like that. So anyway, guys, have you seen Xray or Hospital Massacre? Let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Food for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.